All right, let's talk about rollers and what do they do, problems and benefits from each one. Choosing the right roller can be kind of a little bit of a challenge. And knowing, a lot of guys say, oh, I only use synthetic, okay? Or I only use the White Dove rollers. Or I only use, oh, I'm sorry, did I say synthetic here? This is Lambswool. I only use Lambswool, or I only use synthetic. Okay. There's good and bad about each one. So let's talk about, there's two things that your roller is supposed to do. One, absorb paint. So when you dip the roller, it absorbs the paint. And then when you paint the wall, you release the paint from the roller to the wall. So we're going to talk about absorption and releasing and what each one of these rollers does the best. And then there's different sizes. So we got 7-inch. This is a 7-inch. It fits on a Slim Jim frame. These are kind of cool. That's why we don't have the regular 7 inches anymore. These kind of replace those. We used to just have regular 7-inch rollers that were like this long, 2 inches shorter than these. And those are obsolete because of these types of things here. And we'll talk about these versus the smaller size of those two. So what each roller does, you have different things. The larger the roller, the less resistance it has rolling. If you know that about bicycles, the reason why bicycle wheels on road bikes are big, tall wheels is because they have less rolling resistance. And if you drive a little tiny skateboard wheel, a little tiny thing, then you ride it and it kind of, you feel like you're falling off the front of the skateboard, and you ride with some really big skateboard wheels. The big ones, you almost feel like falling off the back of it because it's rolling. The rolling resistance is less. So when you look at your roller sizes, you need to think about rolling resistance. There's number one thing. Number two, how much paint is that roller absorbing? Number three, how much is that roller releasing to the wall? Okay. These rollers right here, this Lambswool, absorbs paint better than any roller there is. Okay, and I don't have the microfiber here, which those are really cool because they're kind of a hybrid between them. I don't do that much rolling anymore, so that's why I don't have any of those right now. But these here are great for walls. The benefits of this is that when you dip it in the bucket, it absorbs paint very quickly, and then it releases it quickly to the wall. But the problem with it is when you go over the same areas a lot of times, it also absorbs paint really well. So it'll actually take paint back off of the wall. So if you're trying to get something in one coat, let's say you do it with this and it's almost making it in one coat, and you really want it to get it in one coat, you can go to a synthetic roller. These guys are going to fight me on this one, but it's true. You can go to a synthetic roller. It does not absorb paint as quick. It does not absorb as much paint, but it does not, because it does not absorb as much paint, it releases paint and doesn't reabsorb it again when it goes on the wall. So when you paint with a Lambswool, if you're going to have to do 2 coats, it's 100% worth it to do this. To use Lambswool every time. Almost every job you're going to have to do 2 coats. But if you've got a situation where it's like almost the same color, you're going over with almost the same color, and you want to try and get it in 1 coat, you can get more coverage out of one of these because it's going to put on, it's because it doesn't absorb the paint that's on the wall. If you follow what I'm saying, because it doesn't absorb the paint, it releases it and holds it onto the wall, and you can get better coverage because of that. The same thing with brushing. A lot of guys are saying, well, Mike, why do you say to brush, things instead of just rolling? When I'm doing fascia board, I always finish it with a brush. Because when I'm finishing with a brush, I can release paint to the surface without reabsorbing it better than I can with a roller. If I go over with the roller's going to want to take that paint back off. When you go over it, it releases it onto there and also takes it back off when the roller starts to dry up. That's why it's really important when you roll to listen to your roller when you roll the wall up and down. If that roller is going, you hear that noise, you've gone way, way too far. That roller should be almost completely silent when you're rolling. You should just be releasing paint, because when you hear that, it's absorbing paint. So it's taking paint back off the wall. Okay? These rollers here don't ever make that noise really. Okay? But they just do it. You'll see them start to nap up and they'll suck the paint back off the wall. That's what you don't want to happen. You want to release the paint to the wall, leave it there, and let it dry. That's what the whole object is, the game is. What I see a lot of guys doing too much is when they're rolling, they'll take the paint way too far in the roller. When you first start rolling, you only want to go just a little bit. When I first start a roller, brand new roller, I'll only go like 2 feet and I'll dip it again. And I'll go 2 or 3 feet and I'll dip it again. I'll go 2 or 3 feet and I'll dip it again. After about 10 or 15 times dipping it, then I'll start to go like 2 seconds. I'll go up once, down once, then kind of roll it back in, get it on even, done. Dip it, do the same thing. Then you'll start to find as your roller starts to get really soaked up with material, it will start to go further, but don't take it that far. Keep dipping the roller. If that roller starts to go, you hear that noise, you've gone so way too far. You should have dipped it a long time before that. Dipping and then releasing paint, dipping and releasing paint is what you're doing with the roller. It's not about, oh look, let me see how far I can take this. If you're pushing on the roller, another thing, if you're pushing on the roller to get all the paint out of it, that roller's done. Throw it away. That thing's no good. It's lost its spring. You should always be just rolling the roller on the wall and letting the paint release. As soon as some of the paint stops releasing, dip it. Before it starts to make any noise on the wall, dip it. And only go so far per dip. You'll find that the roller will go a lot further. Now, you notice I don't have an 18-inch roller here. I won't use an 18-inch roller. They slow you down. A lot of guys are going to tell me, no. How is that true? It's because what takes more time, cutting in or rolling? Easy question. Anybody know? Cutting in takes way more time than rolling. Especially if you're doing with an 18-inch roller. Okay, so listen. All you're doing when you take an 18-inch roller is you're making yourself have to do more cut work. So now you got to do more cut in. You have to get a 7-inch roller in your big bucket. You're going to spend a lot more time on the cut in portion. Yeah, you spend less time rolling. That's the least part of the job. You're making more work for yourself by doing more cut in. So using a 9-inch roller, because it's more agile, it can get into more places, is much faster than an 18-inch when it comes to the whole job. Okay, there's times when you're going to want to use a white dove roller like this. There's going to be times when you're going to want to use one of these. There's going to be times when you're going to want to use the Slim Jim, the smaller version of this. Okay. Now, if you're having coverage issues on doors, let's say you're doing doors, all right, and you go, hey, I've got some of these, and I've got some little Slim Jim rollers. Well, I'm just going to grab the Slim Jim because they're only $1, okay? I'll just use those. This is a larger roller. This has less rolling resistance, so it's going to roll easier. What does that mean? That means it's going to release paint better to the door. If you're using a Slim Jim, it's going to take more paint back off because of the rolling resistance. It's a smaller roller. It's going to pull paint back off, okay, easier than this one is. This one's going to have less resistance, so you're not going to want to push on it as hard. When you push on the roller harder, it actually covers less. So if you're releasing the paint to the door, you're going to get better coverage with a larger roller. It's always going to be true. I used to always do my doors with 9-inch rollers. Always. Because I could get more coverage. This is even larger. Look. The larger the roller, the better the coverage. Because it's got less rolling resistance. Remember the skateboard wheel? Small little bitty skateboard wheel. Wants to hit every rock. And you're gonna go. You're feeling like you want to go over the front over it. You put the big giant wheels on it, like the guys do the downhill, and they're on the back of the board because it can barely hang on because it's going faster. The same thing happens with these rollers, guys. It's the same thing. It's not really that hard to think about. So what's nice about these is you're going to get a smoother finish. So if you're doing doors, you don't want to do doors with the Lambswool. It's going to come out kind of nappy. For walls, these are fine. For doors, the White Dove, or even this one is pretty good. This is kind of like a White Dove-ish. I think this is kind of semi, what's that called? Microfiber. The microfiber ones are actually really nice for doors and walls. A little bit more nappy, I think, on a door than other. I really like the White Dove or the white ones for doors. Gonna get a smoother finish. I've actually done doors with these and made them look just fine. So it's really up to you. The smaller the nap, the smoother the finish as well. But you'll hardly ever see me use less than a 3/8 roller. The 1/4-inch rollers I found to be that you're spending a lot more time dipping that roller because it doesn't hold very much paint, and you end up with dry spots in it because you're having to dip it too much, and you end up with doors that don't even look as good as if you use a 3/8. So typically, if I'm doing doors, I'll use a 1/2 inch or a 3/8 roller, and then if I'm doing walls, I'll use the 3/4, 7/8, or even 1-inch nap, or a Lambswool. Most of the time I'll use Lambswool. The only time I'll use a synthetic roller is if I have almost the same color over almost the same color, and I want to get that little bit of edge of extra coverage. Because yeah, I'm going to spend a little bit more time dipping this roller to absorb the paint, but it's going to cover just a little tiny bit better than this will. Just a little bit, and that little bit can make a difference on a job. If it's a one coater, you know, almost same color over same color, that's when I'll grab the synthetic roller and we'll go at it with that. Now these here, these little 4-inch guys, I don't use very many of these. There really isn't much purpose to have these on your truck. The 7-inch are much more practical. The only time I have these for some jobs I do because I paint between letters where they're really narrow areas, and it's easier to roll one of these than it is to brush on stucco. So I have some of these where I use for that. It's like on a wall where there's letters of the name of a company. It's a lot easier to use a small roller than it is to just brush everything. So sometimes I'll have those. It just depends on the job. That's the only reason I have these. Otherwise, there's almost no purpose for them. Most of your house stuff, you don't need those 4-inch rollers anywhere. So for speed, the Lambswool. For coverage, synthetic. For smooth finish, White Dove. And for increasing your decreasing your rolling resistance, you can have some of these bigger Slim Jim rollers for your doors, and you'll get more mileage you'll get better coverage. Instead of doing 2 coats on your doors, you're going to get it with 1 because you have less rolling resistance. All that stuff makes a difference, guys. Or just use a 9-inch like I used to do all the time. I used to always use 9 inches on doors. More recently, we started using the 7 inches. I kind of like these for the recessed panel doors because it seems to fit better. These are a little tougher to do recessed panel doors on. The old smooth doors, we used to use these only, and that would be the fastest way to do doors. But doing these recessed panels, These are pretty nice, happy medium. If you haven't tried one of these, you might want to try one. You're going to get a little bit better coverage with it, especially if you're doing like, you know, where you're going over a darker color or a lot of scuffs on the doors and you really want to get it in one coat. Grab one of those and you'll be happy with yourself. So anyway, just a couple things about rollers. All right, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.